Could Nick Woltemade really be the striker to replace Alexander Isak at Newcastle? Because this isn't just another signing. Newcastle may have landed one of the most unique strikers in European football, and a player whose ceiling could transform Eddie Howe's project at Newcastle United. I've analysed hours and hours of Woltemade's game, and I'll be breaking down why his profile makes him such a rare find in modern football, why Woltemade is and isn't the perfect replacement for Alexander Isak, and how Eddie Howe can set up Newcastle to maximise Woltemade's potential. But before we start comparing him to Alexander Isak, let's start by breaking down exactly what makes Woltemade unlike any other striker in Europe. Now, Woltemade is only 23 years old, the perfect age for our current squad and to replace Alexander Isak. He scored 12 goals and got 2 assists in 28 Bundesliga games last season and got 17 goals in 33 games in all competitions. That's just over a goal every other game. He's already got a winner's medal under his belt, winning the DFB Pokal with Stuttgart last season, and he's already got 2 caps for the Germany national team. And that's because he has such a unique skill set. For someone that's 6'6", he doesn't have the profile that you would expect. If I told you that Newcastle have signed a 6'6" striker, you would think that we've signed a target man. But we've signed nothing close to it. In the game against Wolfsburg last season, you can see all his technical ability encapsulated into one moment. You can see him here, picking up the ball in the pocket in transition. He fights off the recovering midfielder, using that strength to throw him to the ground whilst he attempts to tackle him, and then he drives and carries with the ball. Lovely carrier of the ball, does have that burst of acceleration for someone of his height, and then you can see him squared up 1v1 with the middle centre back with recovering defenders. Now in this example here, what would you expect a 6'6" striker to do? It's not what comes up next. He takes on the player 1v1, drifting that shoulder to the left and moving that ball to the right, takes him on and he's clean through one-on-one. That's when the recovering defender comes in to try and block him moving forward. He shimmers it from his left foot to his right foot so quickly, maneuvering him out the way, and then he just slots it into that bottom right-hand corner. It's insane, the level of technical ability he has for his height. That balance to dribble with the ball, lovely shimmers and feints. He doesn't always use a burst of acceleration. He's more of a jinky kind of player, using that ball, drifting it between his 2 feet and just moving the player off balance. And it's a beautiful finish, beautiful take on, and a lovely goal that encapsulate a lot of his game. But he also has flair. He has the ability to take on a player 1v1 and do the unexpected. And in this game against Spain, in the under-21 Euros, he's on that left-hand side, drifted from that central position after linking play, and he receives the ball after a little dummy from the midfielder, and then he's squared up 1v1 of the defender. He nutmegs the defender. Clean through, no chance of recovery, and he just dinks it over the onrushing keeper. Again, lovely composure in front of goal, which we'll come on to later, but it's just insane the level of technical ability that Woltemade has. And he loves to create. He's not a striker that stays in that central position and waits for crosses. He loves to drop deep and to that left-hand side, which I'll show you later in the heat map comparison with Alexander Isak. And then he loves to hold up the ball and link play with the players around him. In this example, he drifts to that left-hand side. He loves to pull centre-backs out of position into those wide areas or into those deeper central areas. He receives that pass into his feet, and it's lovely hold-up play. Just using that strength. He loves pinning defenders. He's good pinning defenders when the ball's played into his feet on the ground. Again, lovely hold-up play. Just maneuvers him off the ball. Creates a little option for passing inside by using his strength. Just lays it off to the on-rushing run. And then that player drills it into that bottom right-hand corner. Just a beautiful little team goal. And like the previous example, he's good at pinning a player when the ball is played into his feet on the ground. And in this example, against the Spain under-21 team, the ball is played into him by the left centre back, and then you can see, just leaning that body into Mosquera, who's recently moved to Arsenal, so it's a good physical competition in this game, and it's lovely balance to take that first touch whilst under physical pressure. But it's not only that, it's that ability to create, like I said. He's not happy just receiving the ball to feet and making an easy layoff. In this example, he spins Mosquera so easily. Again, using that strength to just throw him off and drive forward with that ball and open up a transition moment for his team. But although he's good at receiving that first touch under pressure, sometimes he doesn't protect the ball that well. And in an example against Spain from the same game against Mosquera, the ball is played into his feet by the midfielder. He takes that first touch and tries to dribble across the pitch without really protecting the ball, without using that body to shield it between him and the defender. And Mosquera just nicks in so easily. Just nips that ball away. And it's that ability to hold on to the ball under pressure that needs to develop a little bit whilst at Newcastle. But what you want from any striker, especially for the fee that we're about to pay, is that ability to score goals. He loves to create, but he also loves to score just as much. He scored 6 goals in 6 games for the Germany under-21 team in the Euro tournament that just went by. And in this game for Stuttgart, you can see he's played through in behind and he has a lovely composure in front of goal when 1v1 with the keeper. He loves to round the keeper, and that's exactly what he does, taking that first touch, seeing what the keeper's going to do, and as the keeper rushes onto him to pressure him into an action, he just drifts that ball beyond him and slots it into an open net. And he has that 1v1 composure that's so vital in your skill set as a striker. He usually uses his right foot or his head to score the majority of his goals, usually in the central areas, doesn't really take too many shots from deep outside the box, but it's that killer first touch that enables him to score his goals. And in this example, the ball is played into him with pace. Designed to split the opposition lines, it doesn't seem like he's fully ready for it, but the ball arrives with pace and on the bounce at his feet. But not only does it kill the ball, he deads it, first time, with his left foot, the weaker foot. Beautiful first touch. Look at the amount of space he has to work around him. But takes a lovely first touch with his left foot and then a second touch with his right foot to drive the ball away from the centre back. And again, carrying that ball forward, favouring that right foot, and using the outside of his boot to poke it into that bottom right-hand corner. But Woltemade does have weaknesses to his game, but his biggest weakness is not what you would expect. Now, one of his weakest areas is his ability to win aerial duels. You heard me right, a 6'6" striker that struggles to win the ball in the air against his opponent. And you can see from this example against Bayern, long kick from the goalkeeper, and he's just so aerially dominated by Kim at the back. Just unable to even get off the ground. He doesn't really time his jumps that well. Maybe his height, maybe there's a bit of arrogance there that he should be winning more and didn't really train at it. But it's an art to win the ball in the air, to read the flight of a ball, to time that jump, to bump an opponent before you move. And he just doesn't have that skill set fully developed. It's definitely an area that Eddie Howe will look to work on, especially as sometimes we do like to go long to win those second balls in the midfield area. You can see in this example here, this is the kind of thing I want to see him do a bit more if he's not going to win the ball in the air. Again, a long kick from the goalkeeper. This time, he backs into Eric Dyer a bit better, uses that physicality not to win the ball, but just to bump the centre back and allow his teammates to pick up the second ball. This is the kind of scenario that I expect to see a bit more of if he's not going to win the ball at Newcastle. Another area he needs to improve is that off-ball movement. Now, he does put himself in good positions to get those rebound shots, to put himself in central areas to get finishes on goal, but that ability to make runs in behind, double movements, being on the blind side and timing the run with the passing triggers. He just doesn't have that elite ability of someone like Alexander Isak. And in this example against Bayern, you can see the right back has the ball down that right hand side. It's about to be played into the attacking midfielder. He comes under a little bit of pressure on his first touch, but Woltemade has already made his run. He's already made that movement. It's not even explosive or with any pace or with any timing to it. Eric Dyer is already in a goal side position, just dropping a little deeper than the rest of his defensive line. It's a fairly comfortable run to track, and even when his teammate exploded the ball into the space, he's looking down that right-hand side. You know, he's not reading the triggers, Woltemade, of what his player is doing. He's already making a run and just trotting along the pitch. Eric Dyer is just waiting to play offside, and it's just an element of timing. You know, timing that movement. Maybe he could have stayed on the blind side a bit longer and then waited to see his teammate get his head up and then made that explosive movement. But it's just that ability to be on the blind side, to make lovely little double runs from his blind side to the near post when he's in the box, for example, that needs to improve when at Newcastle. And one of the biggest things that Eddie Howe will likely work on with Woltemade is his ability to stay in the box and be in that central area in between the posts, especially when the ball is in wide areas. If you remember Alexander Isak when he first joined, compared to now, one of the biggest things that he admitted was that Eddie Howe improved the positions he should take up on the pitch to be in goal scoring positions, to score the ugly goals, the tap-ins. And in this example for the Germany under-21s, the ball breaks loose in a transition moment, arrives at the feet of Gruder number 17. Woltemade is in that central position in between the two centre-backs, but as that ball is played around the corner by Gruder into the winger, this is where I think he needs to improve. You know, he always wants to come to the ball and link play, but in this example, what he should be doing, in my opinion, is drifting to the blind side of Mosquera. He's the central striking option. He would leave the winger then 1v1 to take him on and put a cross into the box. But instead, he comes to receive and link to feet. You know, you don't always have to come and receive to feet. As a striker, he needs to put himself in between the posts, especially in these types of situations. He tries a little backheel pass. It could come off. It doesn't in this case. But it's just that ability to be more of a striker in his mindset, to be a bit more greedy, selfish in his positioning, and just allow the rest of the players to link, create, and get the ball into the box. So now we have a better picture of his abilities. How does he compare to Alexander Isak? You can see from their heat maps that Nick Woltemade loves to get more involved in the game than Alexander Isak. Alexander Isak is more of that focal point in a 4-3-3, whereas Woltemade plays in a front two and loves to drop deep into that left-hand side, favouring that left little half space and deeper into his own half even to help create and link play for his team and build up. But this is the kind of thing where he might have to adapt to how Newcastle play this season. And if we look at the data radars for both players, they're very similar. They're both silky, technical players that also like to score goals. You can see from that right-hand side, the progressive passes, progressive carries, successful take-ons, they're very similar. I think Alexander Isak is a better passer off the ball, especially those progressive passes in behind. Completing a few more of his passes, his pass completion difference between him and Woltemade is quite different. But then you look at the expected assists down that left-hand side compared to the assists. Now, Alexander Isak has more assists than Woltemade last season, but the expected assisted goals is higher for Woltemade. And that means that basically his teammates weren't taking the opportunities that he was laying on for them, and that might change at Newcastle United. One of the biggest differences between the two players was their goal output. Alexander Isak had 23 league goals last season compared to Woltemade's 12. But when you look deeper than that, Woltemade had far less minutes than Alexander Isak, and that's why you have to compare them per 90. And if you look at the stats, he is above him. But if you look at the goals per shot, the shots on target percentage, Nick Woltemade is above Alexander Isak. You know, he's scoring more goals per shot than Alexander Isak. I think his shooting ability is there to see, but it's something that can develop as he gets more minutes in the Premier League. And if we talk about some of the things that you can't see in the data, Alexander Isak is blessed with pace. That ability to run in behind, that timing and quality of movement, and that pace to get in behind and move away from defenders is much better than Woltemade's. That pace also becomes important when we do our high press, that ability to get to the defenders quickly. Something Woltemade can't do as well as Alexander Isak. He can carry out that tactical instruction well. He's not lazy. He can perform a press, as he did with Stuttgart last season, who play in a high pressing team. But I think that Alexander Isak trumps him in that trait and that quality. But I think he'll be able to hold up the ball a bit better than Alexander Isak when he drops deep, pin players a bit better than Isak did, and use that strength and the aerial ability in the box. You know, he's not good in aerial duels as much as he should be for a 6'6" striker, but he can head the ball fairly well. Something we've been missing with Alexander Isak. So although there are some similarities between the two players, there are some key differences. So how should Eddie Howe set up the team to maximize the full potential of Nick Woltemade? Now, Woltemade played primarily in a two-striker system at Stuttgart, with Under beside him in that striker role, making those threatening runs in behind, where Woltemade liked to drop deep, link play, move into those wide and central areas to help progress the team forward. And that's why I think he has to adapt his game a little bit to play in our 4-3-3 system. Now, this is the 4-3-3 system that Eddie Howe loves to play with the players that usually play week to week. And one of the biggest things that we'd like to see from Woltemade, what is typical of his game, is that ability to drop and link play in those central areas, in those half spaces, draw the centre backs out in those central positions and create that space in behind. And what you see is that big space. And what we need to do a bit better this season, something we did with Alexander Isak a little bit, but it's those wingers tucking in. Those wingers tucking in, making those runs in behind as he bounces the ball back into the likes of Joelinton, Tonali and Guimaraes. But one of the other things I would love to see is that link play. You know, as he drifts to that left-hand side, you can see the likes of Hall overlapping, Gordon moving inside. He likes to play as a full striker role in the early couple games this season, and he's been threatening in that role as well. I can see him scoring more goals this season with Woltemade in the team. But also what I'd love to see is that ability when we play in that double pivot to link play and to move forward as a team. You know, Joelinton loves to move forward. Tonali plays in that double pivot as Bruno Guimaraes drops into that double pivot alongside him. And this is where I'd love to see a bit more of a box shape. Liverpool do this quite well. They play with those high strikers and Ekatike and Wirtz that drop and create in those central positions. A little bit of a box shape. This could be Jacob Ramsey in that left central midfield position. And he loves to bomb forward beyond the striker, which I think would suit Woltemade. If you look at the majority of his goals, as I said earlier, there's those central striking positions where he drops deep or wide and there's movement ahead of him. He needs that movement ahead of him where he's not used to playing in those central areas. But I think that's something that might develop as the season goes on. And I think that one of the other things that this brings out in terms of that Woltemade signing is that ability to play a two-striker system. One of the other opportunities that Woltemade signing opens up is that ability to play a different system. And with the likes of Visser being linked, Strand Larsen, we could move to that 4-4-2 system. With the likes of Joelinton potentially moving out into the bench, Visser or Strand Larsen alongside Woltemade, and that can replicate the type of system he was playing at Stuttgart with the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali ahead of him. We could play Gordon, Barnes, even Jacob Ramsey in that attacking midfield left wing role down that left hand side, and Alango, Jacob Murphy down that right hand side. But what that does is it allows Woltemade the freedom to drop deep into these central areas, not be overloaded by the likes of Joelinton already in that position, and then the likes of Visser, Strand Larsen making those runs in behind Woltemade and still having a presence up top. And I think that kind of system could work well when we're chasing games. We did it a little bit when Callum Wilson and Isak were in the team together. I think that second striker being brought in, either like Visser or Strand Larsen, will alleviate some of the pressure on Woltemade, having that PL-ready player that can score goals, but also play alongside him and bring the best out of his game. Now, one of the most interesting things about this transfer is that it's the first time we've had to replace one of our star players. And it fills me with confidence that a recruitment team can do a good job in replacing the likes of Bruno, Gordon, Botman, Tonali when those times come. And we moved in silence. The type of transfers that we were used to doing in the early part of the takeover period, you know, no links to any players, top European prospect at a decent price, and then developing them on to be a top player. And I think that's why he has such a high potential ceiling. His skill set is so rare, and I'm so excited to see what he does this season. If you like this episode, hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what you think down in the comments. What do you make of the signing? Are you happy now to move on Alexander Isak, or do we need another striker? I'll link another video up here as usual, and I'll see you on the next episode of A Game of Two Halves.